Hello and welcome to Fierce. This program celebrates the diversity of LGBTIQ identities and perspectives. Fierce is produced in Bundjalung Country at 2NCR Lismore and can also be heard on podcast at fiercefm.podbean.com and in New Zealand on Fresh FM, as well as all over Australia through the Community Radio Network.
Fierce FM on Spotify and YouTube.
I want to honour the traditional owners of the lands where you are living. They took care of these lands for thousands and thousands of years and then shared this land with us at great cost to their own lives. I want to thank them for the care they have given and continue to give, to sit on the earth, listen and care for country. I also want to thank the fairies and crones who came before us in history to fight for our human right to love fiercely.
Host to DJ Radar, Danny Corvini.
In the house.
Thank you for all you're doing in Canberra, helping us to remember the anniversaries that come around every year. Marriage equality.
You're welcome.
You're a DJ who used to be a rave boy. Was that in Canberra or in Sydney?
Well, I grew up in Canberra, so I started out going to raves in Canberra as a teenager. Fell in love with a DJ from Sydney. So I moved to Sydney pretty quickly when I was 18, dating Paul Holden, a very famous Sydney DJ. I went from year 12 in Canberra to move in with Paul Holden in Sydney, and it was the peak of the rave scene, 92, 93. Ecstasy everywhere, and he was the ecstasy king. The rave scene was the third chapter of his DJing career. He'd been an Oxford Street DJ through the 80s, obviously Mardi Gras parties and sleazeballs. Then at the end of the 80s, when it became important dance party era, he was running Bacchanalia party. So he had a couple of years of that important party scene, which was obviously a big crossover between gay and straight people, I guess, for the first time. And then I think out of that, the more hardcore people went to raves, more towards the techno or the acid house and all that sort of stuff. So he moved off into that direction. When I moved in with him, he was very much at the apex of his career. There was almost like a cult-like following around him in 93. And it was the year that he got bashed. So he was an extremely successful DJ at the top of his game, and there was an attack on him in our house. Quite a serious story, and it changed his life forever. And he died about 3 or 4 years ago. I was only with him for a year. We didn't stay in touch. From all reports, it changed his life. Started suffering debilitating depression, anxiety, panic attacks going out to gigs that we'd be going to, worried that we would get attacked in the car park and that sort of thing. He moved off into the happy hardcore scene after we broke up. And for me personally, a lot of other people of my generation, that's when the true rave scene kind of ended. This scene that kind of nobody knew about. It was a secret world inhabited purely by totally cool people and very, very open-minded and all that sort of stuff. And then it kind of got more and more suburban, mainstream. He moved off in that direction as a DJ, nationally successful for all of the 90s. But I think he continued to suffer. 4 years ago that he died, I think right up until then he had serious depression. And I think that was all triggered by being attacked.
Myself, I've been through panic attacks, never knew what they were, and then I had them. Anxiety and depression, you're fighting that every day.
I think a lot of us have experienced them and know them, and a lot of the time it's kind of linked to our sexuality and all this. But I think it was very, very specific with Paul. We 99% knew who it was, another kind of rave crew. So you've got to think back in those sort of days, some people were putting on raves as distribution points for drugs. Other people like Paul and others were into it purely for music. If they took some party favours, then fine. But they weren't selling drugs, and that was the driving force. We think it was a deliberate attack to bump him out of the rave scene because he was diverting too much of the audience away. These people continued to be at large in Sydney putting on events. So you're moving in that world with people and you never quite know who knows what and who did what. So completely understandable. And spent most of my career, the last 20 years, working in the dance or the LGBT scene as a music journalist primarily. I used to do parties in Melbourne in around 2008 in the dying days of vinyl. And then I moved back to Sydney, and Sydney's a tough place to attract a crowd.
Really?
Yeah, I think Sydney people will go out when they know exactly what's going to happen and they know everyone's going to be there. Whereas in Melbourne, people will test everything out.
We call it Mel Berlin.
Probably the most socially kind of gay city I've lived in. So I've had 2 stints in Sydney, had a bit of a break from DJing after getting back from Melbourne. So it was almost a decade because I had to take that step to digital. So I kind of put that off for a very long time.
Digital, so you're doing USB?
I did start with USB a couple of years ago, but Serato is literally like laptop DJing with mixer plugged into your laptop or vice versa. More of a visual way to DJing.
So how do you line up the beats? Do you do it by ear?
I'm deaf from going to raves. How anyone could ever hear two tracks at the same time. So that's why I like Serato Scratch, because it's completely visual. You see the sound files.
Wow. Well, you've taken us back to the 90s. I was in Sydney in the 90s a lot, but I was hanging at the Albury Hotel.
We used to go to the Albury after raves on Sundays.
Oh, the tea dance up at Gilligan's on Sunday afternoons and all that. Yeah.
Might have seen you there.
Tell us a funny story from back then.
I only sort of came out when I was about sort of 17. I didn't really have any sort of sex education or gay role models or anything like that. So I think when I kind of came out and moved up Sydney, I was very, very naive, a little bit scared of all these kind of super confident, super bronze, late 20s Sydney gay guys. You might remember a drag queen called Lady Bump.
Yeah. What happened to Lady Bump?
The last I know, she was living out in Winston Hills in the city's northwest.
Really?
So she was kind of like one of those sort of meteors, I guess, massive for a couple of years there, and I had a huge crush on her. And she had a handbag that was like a hubcap, but I think I was just like way too fucking scared to take this lady home.
Jumping to 2020, people who are that age now going out, I mean, there's no Oxford scene anymore. There's a whole social media situation. There is marriage equality. And there is a world that's a lot more accepting. It's legal. You were talking about the 80s a minute ago, and Mardi Gras only started in 78, when it was illegal still to be holding hands in public. Jason and I can get married because of everything that all the activists have done. We're very grateful. How do you feel about the world as it is now for these young people?
It's kind of amazing, isn't it? Well, I think you always hold on to the time you grew up and the generation that you're a part of. And I think for a lot of young people, sadly, they didn't get to experience what we did. People will talk to you about it in a way, and it's like, no, that's not how it was. Like, they think because we've had marriage equality and stuff like that, which is so great, that somehow we're all some kind of Midwestern town fearing for our lives. There's a bit of a communications challenge there. And I guess it happens with every generation. I used to love watching Grease growing up, and my mum was like, you know, the 50s or the 60s. She's like, but it wasn't like that. And I think it's kind of the same thing. In my mind, I always kind of go to Sydney and think that Oxford Street is going to be like it was. And it is every year at Mardi Gras. And in some ways, it's so much better now because people have so much access to so much more stuff that things can be far more intense. Back then, there was kind of a little bit more of a kind of constant good kind of feel and vibe and stuff, and having that very visible community all the time and not just on your phone. Like, I can drive from Canberra to Sydney and find like boys in little country towns on the way. But it's different to actually knowing that you can pop into a bar at any time and there'll be different scenes. And I can remember there was like leather daddies sticking their heads out of the Oxford or the midnight shift window, and like obviously the drag scene at the Albury and the twinks at the Flinders and stuff like that. So you get all like the different kind of subcultures of gay. It's sad to kind of lose that. So I guess in a lot of ways, it's like things are much, much better. But the flip side of that is also kind of like things were much, much better. If you kind of discount those big ticket wins like marriage equality. And congratulations to you guys.
Thanks, Danny.
When did you get married?
Jason's family's all in Melbourne,
Yeah.
so we're waiting, but we're engaged.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
exciting.
Yeah.
3 years ago, there was this plebiscite, and the suicide rate jumped incredibly at that time amongst young people who are LGBTIQ. I remember turning on the TV and seeing these horrendous ads, and also Hate in the Sky by Planes. We saw it happened in Sydney. It was a full-on time.
Yeah.
Were you involved with marriage equality back then and working with them in any way?
That period of my life, I was spending a lot of time living in Amsterdam, the first place in the world to permit gay marriage. And I'd be coming back to Australia quite frequently, and it would be just this reverse culture shock. And then was back in Australia for the final 2 or 3 months stint leading up to the vote itself. I read a lot of magazines and newspapers and TV like everybody, and having to always see that opposite point of view put forward, and in the name of balance, it hurts you and it hurts those that you know. And how the Yes Fest came about, Thomas Hoffman was organising an event that night at Hopscotch Bar in Canberra called the Marriage Equality Results Night Party, which I don't think is very catchy, but that was the name that he gave it. I met him 2 weeks out, we clicked, and then that night I realised he was the guy that was organising this party, which at the time had about 300 or 400 people RSVPing. Within a very short period of time, it was suddenly in the thousands. So I contacted him to say, well, what's your plan in terms of like music and drag queens and all that sort of stuff? And there wasn't one. So a lot of people just think, just play Spotify and whatever. I'm like, no, like you have to curate events musically. So I realised very quickly this would turn out to be Canberra's Mardi Gras. Jacob White from the Australian Marriage Equality Organisation in Canberra got in touch with Thomas. So for the last 2 weeks, we suddenly kind of became this twin engine operation. Australian Marriage Equality had the street closed off, which was not part of the original plan, and I booked other DJs, some drag. But until the big night, we still had no idea what was really going to happen. Facebook, you can see there's RSVPs or interested, but you still don't know what you're going to get when you turn up. 6 o'clock on the day of the result, and, Sveta and I sort of slid in with our DJ boxes. There was a lot of people there, and we had like Penny Wong and Chief Minister Andrew Barr and members of the Greens and all these different politicians there ready to give speeches. Straight away got into that festive thing where it's like, this is a form of a Mardi Gras. You get a dance, like as part of this whole thing. You're not going to just stand around like with a drink and wait for speeches. So it just kicked off, and Hopscotch has got a very big courtyard at the front that goes out to the street. We were playing in there, and we didn't get a chance to go out onto the street for hours. So we had no idea how many people were there. The sound guy, who at one point after a few hours managed to go out, and he came back and showed us on his camera the crowd. And as you went out onto the street, it went like a giant T, like as far as the eyes could see. There was like 6,000 people there.
Awesome.
So it was this incredible, mad, spontaneous night, which, Canberra's never seen anything like. If you live here, it kind of makes sense. We recorded, the highest yes vote in the country at 74%. Canberra's got the only openly gay leader in the country, Andrew Barr, who was just re-elected a couple of weeks ago. People always say about Canberra, not necessarily that it's progressive as such, but it's like it's educated. So the people here aren't susceptible to the right-wing type of tabloid mentality. We don't have any Rupert Murdoch newspapers in Canberra. The cinemas in the city are only art house cinemas. Canberra's a bit of a surprising city, and I'd been away for a lot of years. Me, like a lot of people, were kind of like, wow, the city's actually changed. Turns out that we were like DJing at this party to 6,000 people, and had, like I said, Penny Wong and all these people doing very emotive victory speeches.
I wish Penny Wong was more ambitious.
Ooh, wonder what that could mean. Well, you never know. You might get your wish. I would keep an eye on Christina Keneally. I think she's got a bit of that fighting spirit. They need to elbow out of the way and get one of these fierce divas in, because we need a point of difference to Mr. Beige.
Why do you not have any Rupert Murdoch papers and we do?
It's a good question. I don't exactly know the answer to that. I mean, Canberra's like a small population, so if there's only one newspaper, maybe Rupert can't be bothered buying it. I mean, we still get the Australian. The mentality is just a little bit different. You just don't have quite those fringe, more to the right kind of attitudes. It's a pretty friendly sort of city where everybody sort of more or less blends in together. And I think, what happened in 2017 was like a very explicit display that includes LGBTIQA plus people, like once and for all. And not only that, but we fucking love you. Very little resistance year on year to this event, because anyone can come along. Free, it's on the street. A lot of the people are obviously allies or just curious people who enjoy the show, enjoy the street parade.
Since that event in 2017, this festival that's been happening every year, have you seen a change in the community there?
There weren't many events then. Canberra's like a lot of mid-sized cities, like a one gay bar city. Canberra's the same, but the difference is that there's become like a lot of small parties. Maybe not so much this year, but last year and the year before, some weekends there'd be 2 or 3 fairly undergroundish queer parties on, with lots of drag and underground sort of beats and stuff like that. So the drag thing here has really been quite bananas the last couple of years. It's just part of the psyche of people that they know they're a lot more welcome in their city, and it attracts others. A wonderful thing if more people can come to Canberra and have their little gay weekend or whatever and wash away those kind of 1980s kind of high school trip memories.
When I think of Canberra, I think of it as a very tidy town.
It is tidy, but it gets messy.
And I saw Eartha Kitt in Canberra with my mum once.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know it as being a gay place, and I don't know whether that's something new because of what you're doing, your work, or whether it's always been a big gay destination.
Well, a lot of gay people are very ambitious, remember, and we've got the whole public service and government. Younger queer people would be coming here to study at ANU and those sorts of things. And when they know that there's some form of gay community or scene in a city, they're much more likely to kind of move there than Wagga Wagga or Wollongong or something like that. But I do remember a couple of years ago, there was some sort of result after a census, and it was like the result was Canberra's got the highest proportion of same-sex couples in the country.
Is there a song that makes you think of Yes Fest?
Yeah, Together in Electric Dreams by the Human League.
And why do you love that?
I love it.
It was Electric Dreams. It was about a computer that was trying to ruin someone's life, his love life. Pretty daggy, but had this great song, which is still really cool. The theme of the party, in a way, is kind of like Together in Electric Dreams. So it's like, it's been a really tough year for everybody, but we discovered so much about the way we can use technology this year. And, you know, we can this year do it and all have a little Yes Fest at home. And so connect, even if we can't see each other in real life.
I just fell in love with it straight away. Bang.
Will you sing along with me, girl?
It was a little bit sexy in a kooky way.
This is Stephen Hawkins, and you're listening to Fierce, the best radio show in the world.
Love is love. And of course, what you're doing is all around that. So when you think of the word love and how you express love in your life, can you share that with us?
Well, I was just reading an article this week about how like our best friends can be that significant other, and I think that's like a really valid way of life these days. I've had 2 or 3 major relationships in my life, but there's kind of currently nothing on my fingers, and I believe in, you know, like waiting around for the right one if you're going to be going into a relationship. I have a lot of really great friends who I really love in different ways and very, very close to, and we really care about each other. But yeah, looking forward to stepping out with that man when he shows up.
What sort of red flags are you looking out for to not go there, or what sort of green flags?
I've learned a lot this year about narcissists. So I'm kind of like really sort of like, that's my big red flag at the moment. Really kind of get to know someone before you give your heart away and everything. Like, and I'm guilty of falling in love hard and fast, getting carried away with it. And I guess, you know, in that way you kind of find out about someone a bit in reverse. And I'm a bit of a lesbian, you know, like the guys I've sort of hooked up with, they've moved in that night and then we're sort of literally like a married couple. I like the idea of dating sort of slowly, really, you know, working out what sort of relationship you want, preserving your space and enjoying your own life as much as your life together with somebody else.
And Danny, the best way to do that, and on a full moon, manifest it, get out there, write everything that you want from that partner to the detail and everything that you want and put it out there.
Yeah.
That's what I did. So, yeah. And it works.
Yeah.
It might take 6 months.
I will, but I'm a busy girl. So like once I get this out of... Once I get this out of the way, then I can concentrate on finding my man.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Wish you all luck, and maybe a listener will find you here. So for listeners, just go to Danny Corvini on Facebook and connect that way. Beautiful. Online, we're going to be watching your live stream on Vimeo.
Yeah.
Will there be a VJ connecting us, interacting with us, or we'll just be watching what's happening in the actual space where the shows are?
It's mainly watching the shows. Because of COVID, got a very limited live audience. Let as many people as possible actually enjoy the show. We're doing 2 blocks of 90 minutes, which are going to be different. So there's some performers that will perform in both, but like there's a whole lot of different performers too. So essentially we've got about a dozen performers in each show: drag kings, drag queens, burlesque, comedy, a pretty full spectrum. And I'll be DJing throughout. We've got Etc. as the host, who is a very successful drag queen in Sydney, who runs the Imperial Hotel, home of Priscilla. And she's actually a Canberra boy, so she comes down to Yes Fest every year. Aside from that, it's all locals this year, which was like a very important thing. But our favourite Indigenous drag queen, Felicia Fox, is spending a short time living in Canberra, so she's appearing too, which is going to, you know, just be mind-blowing. Yeah, like I said, she's a bit of a cult hero down here now. It's challenging because, you know, obviously not everybody can come along. Challenges over ticket prices and all that, things that, you know, not everybody can afford and everything. So we tried to do what we can this year. So the idea is to share it with everybody, like make a night of it at home. It's a 3.5-hour party to tune into.
Will the live stream continue when you're DJing, when everyone's just partying? No, there's no shows.
Yeah, it'll be like a show and then maybe a couple of songs and then a show and a couple of songs. And
I see. And what sort of songs are you playing?
The full spectrum. As you know, I like a little bit of 90s, but, you know, like the millennials might get pissed off if I do too much of that. So I'm going to mix it up a bit. Gay classics, proper pump and dance music. But, you know, there's the challenge that people can't dance. For me, this will be my first chance to DJ all year. And it's kind of like, oh, when are we going to be able to dance again, you know? We've bought 300 glow sticks so everybody can wave their hands in the air. But it won't be full-on dance music because people literally can't dance. There'll be a bit of hip hop, lots of different styles, because I like to try to educate people and like also kind of like reflect back on, you know, what they like, and also pull out some stuff that people have sort of forgotten about that, you know, they realize how much they love it. You kind of ride that wave and kind of see where the night sort of goes. So it's going to be fun.
If people want to find out more, they can just type into their search engine.
Yes, best. And you can tune in from 7 o'clock on Sunday night.
Yes.
And keep on going till 10 o'clock. Just wild.
Thank you so much. So could you please educate us with a beautiful song to go out on?
Rhymes, R-A-E-M. This song captures the essence of kind of 90s dance music. Grimes is such a cool figure that so many early 20s people will know, but they might not quite realise how 90s this track is. So I really love this track. It has all the kind of balls of like a 90s kind of Prodigy track or something like that. It's gutsy as one of those tracks that I really want to play at Yes Fest, but I don't know if it's going to be too hard for people to stay on their stools because it's, you know, just got like a big beats and a lot of energy. Give it a spin and see what you guys think.
Thank you so much, Danny.
All right, guys.
Beautiful time. And thank
beautiful.
you.
Awesome.
Let's put this song on.
Yes,
See ya.
best.
Bye.
Tune in.
Cheers.
Back at you. I hope you guys get married soon. And yeah, cool.
Yeah, same to you. I hope you get married soon too.
Thanks,
Danny.
Or at least have a good lesbian relationship.
That's right. I've got that.
Bye.
See you guys.
Thank you for listening to Fierce. This program celebrates the diversity of LGBTIQ identities and perspectives. Fierce is produced in Bundjalung Country at 2NCR Lismore and can also be heard on podcast at fiercefm.podbean.com and in New Zealand on Fresh FM, as well as all over Australia through the Community Radio Network.
Fierce FM on Spotify.